Good morning, everyone. This is Sunday session. My name is Chuck Williams, and I'm sitting in for Roy today, and hopefully we'll have a good discussion. I'm not a lecturer, so I'm really looking to tap something in you that you want to talk about. I might say one word about the value of speaking your heart and exposing yourself. All my life, I've been a rather reserved person. Well, I shouldn't say all my life, but in an early part of my life I was. And as a result, I was the shy guy who's hid in the back. And I listened to Roy from the age of 18, and when I was in my early 30s, I went to a seminar at Tall Timber Ranch, and sitting listening to him do his lectures at the gazebo, 2 and 3 hours at a time, in morning and evening or afternoon, and it, it was all good, and I listened, and I thought it was wonderful. And then he goes around with this cross at the end of one of the sessions, and I had never seen this before. This was new to me, because he'd been doing it in other places, but this was up in Oregon where I lived. And when he came to me, he laid the cross on me, and I'm wondering, what's this thing? And all of a sudden, my body got stiff, straightened out in the chair, and I made some funny noise like I was trying to belch or something. I was like there was something had to come up. And I didn't know what was going on. I'm looking at myself do this, wondering, what's this? And then he said, what are you trying to say? What is that? And I'm wondering, what's he talking about? I'm not trying to say anything. I'm doing this funny thing. I'm just giving words to what my brain is trying to process. And then it ended up, I said, in a very guttural way, I hate. And that was it. And then he walked on to the next guy. Well, I'm wondering what the heck happened. I don't hate. I'm a nice guy. And why did I respond in a non-rational, mechanical way to this gentleman carrying a wooden cross around? What was that? There was no great philosophical, theological ideas in my head at all. I was puzzled. I thought there was something wrong with me, and I didn't even know. What it really was saying, and eventually I began to realize this, is that life runs on different levels. And there was a level to my life that I was unconscious of, that I didn't know was there. And it's a level of emotion and trauma that we spend most of our life running away from. And over a period of time, it's funny because I didn't start out confessing things. There was no confession. I didn't know that I did anything wrong. But there was evidence that there's something in me that is deeper than I know. And that I have learned over a long period of time with many experiences, that's true of everyone. Everyone has that other layer. Some people sense it and run from it, and some people sense it and hide it, but most people have no idea it's there. They don't know it's there. I think they're just a nice guy, make a few mistakes, and I didn't do this, didn't do quite right, but I'm all right, and I do this, and they don't ever get any deeper. It's there. There's another level of experience in the level where trauma flows, and it's a spiritual level, and it's a level beyond the comprehension of the intellect. We have an intellect. I can talk about things I've experienced on a spiritual level with words, but it's not on an intellectual level. Most people like to stay, that's about as far as they want to go, the intellectual level. But there's a value to going deeper. How you go deeper, I don't know. Being willing to go deeper is, it's there in some people and not in others, and who knows. And some people will go deeper, and that's deep enough, and they'll never go any farther. And I've seen them like that, and they seem like they're waking up, and then the next thing I know, they're dead. Or they're gone off to do something else, to build a pyramid or something, I don't know. And so, it's a mysterious thing, but I see it unfold all the time. And I only want to say to you, from my experience, one of the main lessons I've learned in life is let it hang out and be an idiot and be willing to expose yourself. Now, there will be some who will act like they're exposing themselves and they're just doing a trip on everybody, but that's okay. And if they don't see it, maybe they will wake up at some point because they took enough risk. Others really are genuine. And some people don't have to say a word. They open their heart and they change. And they let not my spirit in, but the consciousness of our Father, who He is always trying to bring His consciousness into you, but He won't bring His consciousness into you to knock out your own ego nature. He has to be invited in. That's the way He set it up. So you have to let His consciousness come in, and it will eventually neutralize the ego nature. It'll be there, but it'll be hardly a factor. But He does that. You don't do that. All you do is let the consciousness of the Father in, you not even knowing you're letting it in, and what it does is it humbles the proud nature in you. And if your proud nature cannot stand to be humbled, and you're connected to it so tightly, he will come in, but it will be a whole different process, and a rather violent one too, at the end, which we don't want to get into yet. Any comments, any questions, any?
That last comment sounded interesting to me.
Microphone?
Oh, no, I was just asking with that last comment, that you don't want to get into it, it'll be a violent process.
Well, what I'm just saying is I don't know what it's like, but I suspect that at the end of our life, we enter a realm where there is no excuse. There's no lie. There's no illusion. It's not allowed in this realm. And if you've lived your whole life in illusions and escape, this will be hell, because it doesn't work anymore. And if you've lived your life trying to see the truth about what you are, and trying to see what it means and wondering, what is all this? How come I did that? Why is this that way? But not just in words, you're in this wandering mode through life like a child. Heaven, where there are no excuses, the place where there are no excuses will be for you heaven. So what will be one person's hell will be your heaven. It's all the same for both. It's a reality with no excuses. The lie doesn't have any traction there. And if you run from the truth about yourself and who you are all your life, you're going to go into a reality where there is no excuse, and you'll have to see it. I think that's why the Christians came up with this concept. It probably got distorted from the original Christians, but about purgatory, which is, we were taught, purgatory is where you're going to have to suffer the fire of hell, but there'll be an end to it. Purgatory, if there is such a thing, it could be a place where when you die, you're willing to see the truth about yourself this moment. You're going to have to see a few more in this other reality, and then because you were willing to while you were still alive, even though you had more to see, then you're purified and going on. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how that works. It's all philosophy and everything. I just know that if I die wanting to hold on to the excuses and lies in my life, it's going to be hell. And if I die always wanting to see the truth about who I am, then I think we'll come into a reality where there are no excuses. They have no traction, so you don't have to fight them. You don't have to fight the lie. You say, what am I? Am I seeing that? Did I really understand? Why did I do that? I heard something in my voice. Why was that? You don't have to be as much on the lookout, because you've proven yourself by holding on to the very end. Anyway, I don't want to get into all that stuff. I want to talk about where you are now. What's your problem? What's bugging you?
Hi. What's been happening to me lately, so I have two questions, and then I was going to ask, what is a thought, and where does it come from? And lately, when I first started coming here, it's been about 3 years, it's like my soul was on fire for God. I felt like I just became raw and willing, and now I just feel just a little dense. And then this morning when I woke up, I realized that I've never spoke up in my life. I've always been afraid. So in my mind, my brain is just going crazy the last few months with stories. It's making up stuff in my head.
No, but that was always true. You're just becoming very conscious of it now.
I used to go to bed. I used to lay in bed for hours and make up stories about winning the lottery. But now they won't stop. And I can see them. I can see that they're silly. I can see that they're not mine. Mm-hmm. Some of them are extremely wicked. Mm-hmm. Some of them are just like, what? Just stupid.
Same old story. You're repeating it again. A little better.
Well,
see what I'm saying? I notice that in my head. My brain will start telling a story, and it'll be a story I've told before, and it will be perfecting the story in my head, and I'm watching this. I'm watching my brain do this. And at one point I realized before I was my brain. Mm-hmm. Now I'm watching my brain. Still helpless, but I'm watching helplessly. There's magic in that. That is a magical condition.
Well, that's good to know because it's
I know what you're talking about.
Interesting it.
Because the reason you say that's good to know, but the reason you say that's good to know is because it's tapping in to a realization that's going to come over you and overwhelm you, and it's a good realization, and it has to do with what this all means. And it's going to be a wordless realization, so that simply watching your brain telling the stories, and there's a slight separation there. You think, my mistake was when I was young, I tried to make the separation, and that was a mistake. Yes. You cannot make it. You only can see it because it's there. That separation is the blessing of your Father. He is separating you from that brain just for those moments to see the difference. And you're only separated from it because sometimes you'll sink into it, right? Yes. And then you'll realize you're there, and then all of a sudden you'll be back here. It's just a slight difference. That separation is His presence in you. And what will happen is there will be a realization at some point of what this all means in wordless way, and you'll be different. He will have perfected this whole process in you as you have it happening in you. And all I say is keep on going.
That's why I like to come here, because when you're home alone and you're going through this stuff,
but you were home alone as a baby.
It can draw you, it draws you, it's trying to draw me, because what I see is because I don't speak up, that thing keeps speaking up in my head to stop me from speaking up in real life. So it thinks, and I might be...
It'll get all very complicated in some ways.
Okay.
All the simplicity is every moment. A moment is simple.
Okay.
There's a moment. Nope, that's gone. There's another moment. Oop, it's gone. But if you're conscious in one moment and not conscious in 5, you were conscious in one moment. And you couldn't time it, but there was this consciousness that you're unconscious. That's consciousness.
Okay.
Being conscious that you're unconscious is consciousness, and if it's not done by your brain, it's got to be done by His presence. And you can't tell He's there. You can just see, and what it does is it produces in you this helplessness. The proud intellectual part of you will feel helpless in this simple little being aware of the separation, just a slight separation. That is magic, because that's all you have to do, really, for the rest of your life. You have to be in this separated state. What will happen is, I suspect, and I'm already feeling it, is that I'm separated more. That I see everything coming together in ways and passing, and it's like I'm just a little kid in a crib watching this life unfold. That is when, and there are times when there's no separation, and I'm in my brain. But somehow, I know I'm in my brain, but there's no separation. It's got me. But there has to be some separation because I know I'm God.
Okay.
And I have no way of getting out of it. It's totally helpless. And I endure that. All of a sudden, I'm back to separated again. And I can't turn it on and off. There's another intelligence in life that turns that on and off. And I have to be willing to take the risks to get out there. It's like when I used to ride bucking horses, I'd train him on the ground for a while, and then I'd have to get on the horse and see if he bucks. Well, you never knew until you got on the horse. You can have all the theories you want, and the horse you thought was going to buck like heck didn't, and the horse that you didn't think was going to buck at all almost kills you. That's just the way it is. So you got to be willing to take the next step. So that's what life is. And I could speak, if a child at 2 months could understand language, I could probably speak to that child much easier than most adults who are well educated. The more educated they are, the harder it is to speak to them.
Well, their brain isn't so full of stuff.
Well, yeah, and we're so confident in our brain. So, but anyway, I'm not complaining about it. I just see, I become more simple, and I'm willing to go someplace more simple. And I actually find there's a magic in that. So I don't want to do a lot of talking. I want you guys to make all the mistakes yourself.
Hold it close. Okay, is this good? Yeah. Am I good? Okay. Yeah, I have when I was in my motel room this morning, I got up early, so I had some time to meditate. So I laid down and I had this really great meditation where I felt, I was really connected to my Savior, and had some repentance, the sweet sorrow, I call it. And so then after this period of time, which was just really beautiful, so I get up, and then I try to find something, and all of a sudden I'm irritated. So I don't know, is this thing real or not? I mean, why? I know, excuse me, Roy says you're not supposed to get irritated.
Do you often get irritated?
I think early in the morning when I'm kind of still half asleep and stumbling around,
Because what could be is that experience you had in meditation, that quietening and how do you describe it?
Sweet sorrow?
Something like that. That
Yeah.
may have been a connection that now comes out of that state of just laying there. Now you're in life and you're seeing yourself doing things, and you notice this other energy there. You notice this anger or frustration. That is a carryover from actually becoming conscious in the meditation. Now that consciousness that you let in that quiet moment is coming in your active moments, showing you there's a whole other level of your life you're not seeing. And it's only showing you so that you can feel because what will happen is when you see how angry you are, you will try to make up for it. You'll try to be nicer and less impatient and more understanding, whatever. This is what we do. Our nature tries to correct the wrong. But then, as you will have to see that you can't fix it.
What nature is trying to correct it, though?
That's your nature.
But the bad nature, the
You're
wrong?
a proud nature. You're going to fix yourself.
Okay.
That's what we do, right? You tell me I'm wrong, I'll fix it.
This identification that she had as this sweet sorrow, there's a danger even in identifying that investment.
Right.
Because there's a danger of identifying even in that investment that you had this experience of sweet sorrow. Because we have these entities, if you will, or attitudes or whatever you want to call these things inside us, they are more intelligent than you are. And they can actually manifest these ideas, these emotions, and trick you to thinking that, wow, I had that really sweet sorrow experience, which was possibly a trick. And then you get up and then all of a sudden you found yourself that you're being irritated about something, and then you say, well, where did that come from? I just had this really beautiful experience. So to avoid that entrapment, is to not judge it one way or another.
Exactly.
You pull away from it, and okay, you knew you had it. You can't do anything about that, but you don't put the investment into it.
See what she's saying? Because this is a really good point. Look, I got one. I got my own mic.
Oh, okay. I was going to share.
We can share mics.
Okay.
So what she's saying is you have this spiritual experience in your meditation and you think, this is really wonderful, this is so peaceful, I really love this. If that's the right experience, which is to say, if that's coming from the right place and not from this evil that moves amongst us and always deceives us, if it's coming from the right place, as you go out to live your life, it will be tested. And if what you see is more impatience, it doesn't mean that that wasn't real. It just means you're more impatient than you realized.
Yeah.
Okay, and it could be that, because here's the thing. Someone asked me yesterday, he said, what should I do? How should I do this? And I says, well, look, I don't know what you should do. You tell me one story, they tell me something else, they tell me something else. I don't know what really happened when I wasn't there. And even if I was there, I might not know what's going on, because people are cleverer than me. I'm actually very naive, she says. That's a nice way to say stupid, but
I didn't say so.
no, I know, but I am naive, so I miss stuff. But what I found is, I said to the person, look, time will tell. If what you're doing is the right thing, it will become evident at some point. Either things will be working well or they'll all collapse. That's true in your life. If you go out and notice this impatience, don't be judging, oh, that was such a wonderful meditation I had. Just let that thought will occur to you, but just let that go. Don't decide whether that's true or not. And then you see your impatience, just go through that, and you'll deal with it wrong probably first, and then you'll deal with it a little differently. And in life, God is there always trying to orchestrate your life so that you wake up. Everyone has a different formula. He knows
The
it.
adversary is right there tailing behind it.
Exactly. Now, evil is very stupid because he believes he can outsmart God, which is it. But does your ego think it can outsmart God?
Yes.
Your ego, by its nature, is in charge.
And another entrapment is the emotions.
Exactly.
The primitive feeling of emotions at the original sin, if you will, and the creation of the emotions to substitute the being separated from God.
Yeah.
So
And it feels good for a while.
it could feel blessed
Yeah.
and tricking you.
Yeah.
That's why it's really important to not get invested or identify with these feelings that we have as we go along in our journey. We just let it be. Because if they're true and you did have a sweet sorrow, instead of investing in the emotion of that sweet sorrow, you just let it be.
I don't know what you mean by investing in.
Well, let me put it this way. It may be a little confusing.
I shared it. To me,
Yeah.
it was very real.
Here,
and,
you need to
know,
have
and
the-
I
Yeah.
felt-
Yeah.
Well-
No, I don't want to put it down.
Oh, no, I
Because-
know you're not.
Yeah. No, but here's the deal. Because we have this question. Was that good or bad,
Yeah.
what I just went through?
Yeah.
For instance, I had a couple of
that's
things
true.
happen to me yesterday, and I looked at that and I said, did I do the right thing? Am I an appeaser? Did I appease somebody? I didn't speak up? What is that true? Because I know what happened. I mean, I know what I did or didn't do. So the question is there. An hour later, I am speaking up to someone who needs to be spoken up to, but I never decided to do it, and I did it with such power that it affected the whole situation. But it wasn't because I didn't do it here, because I still didn't know what I did. And then I do this. If I hadn't gone through this, and I went through this, which is speaking up with this sharpness. It was a sharpness that came out of me, but it wasn't anger. I would have probably said, "Whoa, what am I doing? This is awful strong." But what I'm saying is, my life is orchestrated. Your life is orchestrated.
Yeah.
So you're going to go through these experiences. what I see as the value, it would be good if you could share your experiences with other like-minded people and just throw it out there. They'll give you their 2 cents worth. It may not be worth anything, it may be worth something, but that willingness to share with people who are like-minded will allow you to break through the illusions, because you may be caught in an illusion that is actually connected to a trauma in your life. Very strong connection. Somebody else over here doesn't have that trauma. They say, wait a minute, what did you say? And they break through the illusion and break the trauma connection. You may not do it perfectly, or you may just hate them for what they did. If you hate somebody for what they do, they hit a trauma.
Yeah.
Because the hate is a protection. If you're hating somebody who just said something, it's a protection against something you don't want to know. So you can look at your own hate and say, ooh, well, it stirred up some stuff.
Primal investment of emotions.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure I got that, but I think that's good. So see what I'm saying? We're just kind of talking around this thing.
Yeah,
I think it's
okay.
beautiful you shared that experience. It's
Well, thank you.
it is that kind of experience is the essence of what we're going through, every one of us every day in some form.
Right.
So, and we need to just open up and make a fool of ourselves if it happens. Or maybe you share an experience and someone else says, you sure about that? Yeah, this is because I had when I was, I had the same thing. Yeah, and all of a sudden you got 2 people who had the same trauma, and one is a little bit farther in dealing with it, and the other person can have a little hope. Because we're all people. Well, you know why we're here in life? Most of us are here suffering because we're hopeless. Because we don't think anyone's looking out for us. Dad isn't there. But Dad is there. But we've hated Dad, and that knowledge is in our head somewhere or in our heart somewhere. And so as a result, we can't let Dad in. But Dad is always there trying to orchestrate your life to help you find this path. But he's not going to shove it down your throat. So, we got a microphone relocation.
When a while back, I realized, when the more that I, kept on meditating, I would go through a similar experience like she's talking about, where you're going along and you are getting that separation, that's a blessing from the whole imaginary thought world. And then I'd start to get irritated about something, and if you have that little bit of space, you can start to get irritated and see it, and boom, it just fizzles away. Whereas before, I would get irritated and I would go with it, and it's an energy source, So it's a real blessing to be able to see it, and that's where that, the separation is giving you that space and the blessing to just let it pass. So just because it's there doesn't mean you're automatically resentful. You see it and you can let it pass. You have that, that space. Because for a lot of for a lot of the meditation life too, I would constantly be getting, irritated, mad, going with it, and then I'd have to meditate to, from, I'm constantly overreacting and then meditating to kind of, it wasn't really. It was kind of like a.
So you have your quiet moment.
Yeah,
then you can go out and
like
get pissed at the world, and then you have a quiet moment again.
Yeah, and it had its benefit, but it really wasn't getting me. There wasn't that sincerity yet to really, not use that energy source. So, thank God that had occurred. It took a while. I'm really slow on things, but I don't really care, But I wanted to share a similar experience I had like you had. I was once at the meeting down in Venice, and Roy had gone to the movies with a speaker that he had there, and Anne was doing the talk, and I was sitting there in the back listening to her talk, and I don't know how her voice or the way she was triggered something in me, and my arms became paralyzed, literally paralyzed, and my hands were like on fire, and my eyes were closed, and I was like, kind of crying. I mean, I wasn't like, ooh, but I was just like, it was.
What was it?
It was bizarre. It was a demonic.
You sure?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was. It was.
Doesn't make sense to me.
Well, those entities were coming up in my arms and they paralyzed my arms, but there was, a light obviously causing it.
I've never had an experience like that.
Well, what happened was they took me in the back room because they didn't know Roy wasn't there. They didn't know,
You sure it wasn't just a trauma?
Well, sure,
It
it's
was triggered
trauma-based.
somehow?
It's trauma-based, but they took me in the back and my body just reacted. I was like semi-conscious, but my eyes were closed, and I was knocking stuff off the shelves and stuff. They took
Like
me
in a sort of an angry way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was conscious, but not really conscious. I was out of control totally. It wasn't
Yeah.
even me. And they took me in the back parking lot, and I was on the ground laying down. Bob Just was there. He didn't know how to deal with it. And I was flapping my arms, like you know how you make angel in the sands at the beach? I was doing
So
that.
what did you
I
learn
was
from
doing
all
that in the
that?
cement. So anyway, and another employee came up, and I said,
I don't
"Oh,
want to hear the whole story. I
okay.
just want to know, what did you learn from all that?
Well, what I learned was one of those entities came out of my mouth, and I talked to Roy the next day, and he told me, "You've been very repressed. Huh? You have a lot of repressed anger."
Yeah.
And I said, "Roy, but no, I'm really nice. I'm
That's a sign of a repressed anger.
And he said, "No, you have a lot. You have." And I said, and then I backed off. I said, "Yeah, no, yeah, I see your point." And he said, start to speak up. Stand up for what you see as right.
See, I know somebody very well who has these fits of yelling and screaming, and they tell me they're exorcisms. And then I'm going to say, well, if you've had all those exorcisms, why aren't you better?
Yeah.
And but I said, well, maybe it's just repressed anger.
Yeah.
It's not exorcisms at all.
No,
It's just a bunch of repressed anger, which we all repress anger.
Yeah, but that's true.
I'm just saying that's a possibility.
Yeah.
My experience with exorcism has nothing to do with striking out trying to hurt somebody. Where I am, when I had exorcisms, where I was nowhere like that.
Yeah, I wasn't.
So it was, what I'm saying is that there was actually a separation between me
Right.
and evil, and I didn't separate. I was just willing to stand in his presence, and then that was separating me, and Roy was there, separated, and evil was between a rock and a hard place,
Yeah.
and revealed himself. Evil doesn't want to reveal himself
No.
unless he can scare the bejeebies out of you back into what you were. Otherwise, he would just as soon make you think you're in control. That's his greatest lie, that you're in control of everything.
Yeah.
And you can make up your mind not to do this and to do that, and you're perfectly in control. As long as you believe that, he's got his work done for him, because he can manipulate your thoughts, and
Right.
and evil, and everybody around you is under the same illusion, so we all work together, feeding off of each other. We also need the emotion thing you talked about, so that's in there too. It's kind of like the energy in this conspiracy thing, and it just keeps it moving because we all
Yeah.
need.
Well,
Temper tantrum that he was.
when-
In a sense, we do have temper tantrums,
Yeah.
see? And it's, there's this buried, what I want to deal with is this buried part of our nature. I want it to sort of accidentally poke its head up in our discussion.
Yeah.
You may not see it in you. Someone else may see it in you and say, wait a second, what did you say? Or you may trigger it in someone else and they wake up. You may not wake up yet, but there could come a time when you will wake up to this. Discussing this, I've noticed people discuss this stuff and it makes them more asleep. We had a great discussion. And they all stay on this discussion level and nothing penetrates.
Yeah.
Life is all about letting his presence, which carries truth in it, but it isn't the truth, his presence penetrate. And because what will happen is you will be returned to the state of a child, and you will see the mistake you made as a young child in connection, when you were almost 90% intuitive in connection with your Maker. You made a mistake and fell to the world system. And you will have to return to that. But you won't be returning. He will be taking you. And you're just willing to be led.
Yeah.
You can't get there yourself.
No, we have to have that willingness, yeah. But No, it was, the reason I'm sharing it, because it was a stark awakening that was spontaneous for me, that was a blessing, and it was scary.
What was
But
the awakening?
The awakening was that repressed anger, all that,
that you
that
see
I
that.
wasn't really Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and Roy told, and I was very,
Because you tend to be a nice guy.
yeah, and I was semi-conscious when it was happening. It was not a temper tantrum. It was a thing taking over my body, literally.
trauma is
But I
that way.
But I wasn't trying to hurt anybody, but
No,
I was
but
out of-
trauma is that way because
Oh, yeah.
this person I'm talking about wakes up in the middle of the night screaming,
Mm-hmm.
and have a caregiver, and they drive the caregiver crazy.
Yeah,
So that at some point the caregiver has to leave. I say, I can't sleep at night. You keep waking me up. And that craziness is destroying the caregiver that she needs to be there in case she needs some help.
Mm-hmm.
That is what you see a lot in older people. They can't conceal it anymore because of physical conditions or everything, and all this craziness starts to come out. I remember I had a grandmother who was this strict German character, did everything right, precise. Her husband was a doctor. She was just like this. And then one day she's in a nursing home. She had a heart episode or something, and they put her in rehab, and they were giving her a few drugs. And all of a sudden, she's got the foulest mouth you couldn't believe. She starts telling stories about her grandchildren. They're all made up in her head, and you say, where is this coming from? It was always there. It just was
yeah.
down below.
Right.
And you couldn't see it because she had everything under control.
Right.
And eventually they got the right meds, which meant that she wouldn't be revealing this nature. She would just be nice and kind of half there and sort of looking at things and able to walk down the hallway all right. But you were seeing the nature that was hidden underneath.
right. And the amazing thing is, when I was on the ground there, I was aware of one of them that did come out. It came out of my mouth, and then, but there was another entity that didn't come out, and it went into a part of my body. And
I think you're remembering too much.
well, I talked to Roy.
That's a sign.
I brought-
If you remember, my experience, if I remember too much about an event, there's something, a dramatic event like that, I'm holding on to something. Just like if you were to hold on to that
Well-
nice meditation feeling all day long, you might miss little things in your life you need to see.
Yeah, the reason.
Yeah, that's exactly your point. Yes.
The reason I'm bringing it up, because the experience you had, but I was coming to an end there, that I talked to Roy about that, and he told me, well, and it made logical sense that you have a lot to see in your life still, so
Yeah.
don't worry about it.
That's true.
And it served a purpose.
Yeah,
And-
maybe it
and
just
that was-
broke the pattern.
Yeah, yeah.
See, so all I say is, because I have experiences, and you probably all have experiences that have broken the pattern, realizations, things you're moving through. If you fixate and hold on to those all the time, you'll never go to the next level, and the next level, and the next level, because there's a whole vast road of discovery for all of us. But it's just real simple. After a while, it's automatic pilot. Yes, sir.
I went through a similar thing this morning. I became aware of this movement, darkness, and thought coming deep from within me, and trying to attach everything I did this morning in a negative light. And I'm watching this, and eventually it came to a point where it said something, and I said, that's not true. And it subsided. It's still there, but it subsided. And
When you said, I said, that's not true, did you say that, or did that just come to you?
it just came to me.
Okay. Just wait. Just let that all unfold. And all I tell you is, if you're willing to see, it will move its course, and it will lead you to move more things you need to see, and he'll never put you in a place where you can't bear the next thing. You will always be bearable, but not in the old way. It's a new way. It's a helpless way.
Those are things that have come to me this past week. Things you've spoken about already have come to me at various times during the week of understanding what you just said.
Yeah. And it's good that you share that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would just like to make a comment to you too, is that when I first started getting better, it was like angels were singing to me. Then when I would do something wrong, I would say to myself, well, if I'm getting better, why am I resenting my grandchild? Or why do I feel this way? And I don't know that that's what you're feeling, but I can see that there was doubt inside of me. And doubt has been something that's ran my life. And I don't know if that's what you're feeling, but it's a possibility.
Because you run from doubt, right?
Do I run from doubt?
You don't want to see doubt. It makes you feel, I don't know how to say that. It's because we're just talking, doubt is an experience you're having. It's not a thing. God wants you to be helpless again. And the closeness between doubt and helplessness again in your perception of things, because you may be reading this helplessness as, there's a part of you that reads it as doubt, when he's trying to bring you to the helpless state to teach you a new way to react to helplessness. You have since a child, baby in the crib, you've reacted to helplessness and you've developed a way to deal with it. He's trying to change that whole chemistry in a very gentle way. And so all I'm saying is, don't be afraid of doubt. Just watch it. There's a magic. We use the word watch and we think of our eyes, but the watching that I'm talking about has nothing to do with the eyes, really. It's a watching, it's a consciousness, a helpless consciousness. And he wants to put you in that state so that he's moving you towards a point of, we call it a realization. I went through it, and when I went through it, it was the most remarkable thing because I had this total hopelessness, helplessness place. And I'm there, and I'm there, and I'm there, and I'm just watching, and all of a sudden this realization, I put it into words, but it's like a change in your whole being, and it is, all you can do is watch, and that's enough.
It's so interesting as you speak because coming here, it just kind of taps you on the shoulder and it's like, okay, stay this way, stay this way. You're already going that way, but just listening to all this, because I can see in this moment that I'm not quite where you're talking about. I can see that.
But he's taking you there.
That's okay. I'm not,
just saying this is coming along the way somewhere.
Well, of course, because even though, and I don't know why I keep wanting to cry, but even though a lot of people in my family, because I don't deal with very many people. I have 3 children, my husband, my mom, and my 4 grandchildren that I'm
That's
dating.
enough.
No, it is. But what I'm seeing now that 3 years later, I'm being able to say, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'm able to tell my daughter, well, you shouldn't do that. I couldn't do that before because I was always trying to appease everybody and make everything okay.
And even if you do it with a little anger in it or something, and you see the anger, that's okay.
But
Because
now
if
that
you
you're
see the anger,
talking,
that's okay.
I'm seeing there's a huge change in me. And I'm still very screwed up and I'm still confused, but there is a willingness, and it might not be 100%.
No, you don't know. God will test
I have
it.
to say. But I can see that that's there.
Yeah.
And there's just been that doubt that's just kind of blinded me a little bit. And
Because what I think is, and I don't really know anything. This is a disclaimer. I'm really stupid in a lot of ways. Because really all I have to go on is my own experience. And whatever I say, that sometimes I say things and, geez, is that true? And I just said it and I don't know where it came from. But that doubt could be, evil could be sort of playing on that doubt, which was your sin in a sense, playing on that so that you're afraid to look at that in full light, because in the midst of the doubt, there's some element of it that you just need to see with this clarity that God is giving you. Just wait. Just wait it out. Because what's going to happen, I suspect, is that at some point, you won't even know you did it. You will pass through a portal, and now you're on the other side of it. And even though you're still going through the same kinds of experiences, it's just a different thing because there's so much more hope now. And you don't have to make up the hope, it's just there.
Right.
And if there's doubt, you're sniffing out the doubt. I smell doubt around here. And you don't even think about it. You're just doing it. And what you do is that attitude, going through life with that attitude, everyone around you who's in illusions senses it without even knowing it, and they will react to you differently because of that. And you'll, once in a while, you'll notice, geez, that was funny. Why did they do that? But you won't figure it out. Just you're going on a path to see what you have to see next.
Well, it's interesting that you said that because I've really been going through a lot with, seeing things about my relationship with my husband. Been working on just trying to be in the same room with him and not take anything from him. So when I came here today, he goes out of town 5 days, so I just hugged him. I kissed him on the cheek. I don't know why.
That's
I'm
all right.
sorry.
It's okay. You're a woman. You're good. You have a right to.
But he kissed me back on the cheek.
And that's sweet.
No, it was because
Because he's not the guy who does those sort of things.
no, and I wasn't kissing him
No.
to make him. I just gave him a kiss today.
It just happened. You didn't even know why you did it.
And he just gave me a kiss today, and
Yeah.
it was just I don't.
It's just a simple thing.
Well, it's just
But-
amazing how
but-
something so incredibly simple is
Yeah.
so powerful because
Yeah.
you think you need all these
But
things.
it's not the act. It's actually the traumatic act, but it's done with a different energy.
And that's how come he could kiss her back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what it is, the irony is that used to be your enslavement to him, and now that little incident that happened was an example of freedom. And the only reason it's free, you sense that it's a freedom, but you don't want to build on that. You want to build on the part of you that's changing.
Yes.
And you don't really build anything, you just let him build. You see, everybody thinks they have to do it. And all God is saying is, let me in, would ya? There was this, I always go to this, it reminds me of yelling in this room because I've yelled this once before in this room, but Jesus says, let me take your burden. How does it go? What is it? There's something in the Bible about, what does it say? We'll go to Tim.
I remember the passage, but
Well, nobody can remember, but it's like,
The
my
yoke.
yoke is light. and-
My burden is easy and my yoke is light, something along those lines.
well, the idea was for him to take our
Or-
burden.
Yeah, you're,
And what I realized was everybody is saying,
Exactly.
to God who says, let me take your burden. They're saying, but look at my burden. What that means is we're holding our burden.
Isn't it something about all ye who are heavily laden?
Yes.
That's it.
Let
Something
me
like
take
that.
your burden.
Let me
And it has several lines after that. You have to look it up. But we say, but look at my burden. Because we're looking at our burden and holding it against our Father. Why me? And all this process is meant to bring you back to the original trauma where you said in a very conscious state, a very intuitive state as a child, I gotta go this way, sort of thing. I mean, it's like you go to the world, you really can't help yourself. You go to the world knowing the Father's there. Because as a child, I don't remember, but I suspect children are very connected to the moment and to reality. You look at a little baby in the crib, most of them, they're all like this. They're just looking, and they don't have any words in their head. Mommy and daddy, maybe. They don't even say why yet. That's a great word, anyway. So they did experiments where they would take little 3-month-old babies and they would put over them a drawing, complicated picture. And the baby would look at it, or a design, and they would look at it for 15 minutes or something, and then they kind of lose interest and look at other things. They'd move that out, bring another one in. They did this over a period of time, and they noticed that if they ever reintroduced one that he had seen before, he's immediately uninterested. 30 seconds, he recognized, seen it already. Complicated things. what essentially is the baby in his openness is just taking it all in. He recognizes when he's seen it before, there's no point to taking any more in there. What it shows me, that's just a mechanical brain thing, but it shows me that a child is so open to look and so innocent. We need to be given those child eyes and the child soul. The reason we don't have it is because we too much got in. This crazy world got in. So now we keep it out. That's our protection. And many people, that's their morality, keeping the world out and hating it when it starts to come in. But that's our mistake. So we need to go back this other way. But you can't find your way back. You can only let Him lead you. And He leads you where you least want to go. He's going to take you there. And that's okay, because the miracle is He never shows you more than you can take. Now, I don't know that for sure. I just know in my life, I have seen things that would kill people if they saw them. And it's all part of reality. And I've seen them in stark nakedness, and it didn't kill me. It made me stronger. What do you know about that? I see a hand and a microphone.
So, to get back to the exorcism thing that you were talking about a little bit before, a long time ago, I felt something, I was having an exorcism, but I got so scared and so freaked out, I just pulled back from it, okay? So I keep wondering, is that thing there still inside of me? and how is it ever, how, you know,
Here's your answer in a sense. Oh, go ahead. He's going to give an answer.
Well, can I
Go ahead.
Can I go on?
Yeah, go on a little bit.
Okay. Every once in a while in meditation, I will see this darkness. It's like coming out of this well, this darkness coming into my head. There's like how you meditate, it's kind of like a grayish thing. And then these waves of darkness will be flitting through, and I just watch it, and I'm not, doesn't worry me, but I'm wondering what that is, if that is some of that whatever that wanted to come out, that didn't come out, if it's coming out that way or not.
Did you want to say something,
Yes,
Roger?
I did.
Okay.
You might help her.
I had an exorcism, and it was just like Roy described it. You're sweating bullets, everything. You can't hardly stand still, and pretty soon this void comes out of you. And man, but afterwards, I didn't feel that much different. In fact, I didn't feel any different.
Yeah.
But people around me could tell a difference.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I went back and I had a problem. I've always had a problem with sex, and even before I was very old. I'm sorry, this is getting to a lot more than I wanted to get into, but anyway, so I was tempted by pornography, and I went back and looked at some pornography, and what happened that night is the exorcism happened in reverse. Something came into me, and for years and years and years, I carried around the guilt of that, and it, finally, just recently, I realized that was part of my growing. That had to happen. That was just like everything else that happens in your life. It happens for a reason, and it happens for your growth. And whatever you're seeing is it works. It's like Roy says, it works out. The bad works out for the good works out for the good. So don't dwell on the experience. Just see that it's part of your growing, and that it's part. You need to see it and move on and see what comes next. And don't worry about it in the past. Worrying about that, it's holding on to that doubt, and that doubt keeps you away.
And it's keeping you out of the moment.
Yes.
If you're worried about the past, you can't be in the moment.
But I'm not worried worried about.
No, I was just saying it as a
Yeah,
general
yeah, I
thing.
know,
See,
you're
we're
responding.
talking about this
Yeah.
whole process that we're on.
Yeah,
And you kind of started it with your story, which I thought was an excellent story. But what we're kicking it around. We're not kicking you around. We're kicking this idea around about how, and giving our own experiences, which are good. It's good for you to share
Okay.
that.
yeah.
And-
But I was wondering about these waves of darkness, what that.
Well, I'm
if
not sure what that
anybody had
is.
Okay, if anybody else has had that experience.
I
because-
generally have waves of brightness.
You
But
used
that
to a
doesn't mean
long
they
time
always
ago.
happen. That doesn't mean they always happen. Sometimes I'm just there in the moment,
Yeah,
sitting there in the moment, or laying there in the moment, and that's it.
I have that sometimes.
There you go.
You know, and it's like I can see like a blackness, you know, but I know it's being shown to me. So I'm grateful
See?
for that.
Because if God is showing you, whatever He shows you, if you let Him show you, it will be for good.
Yeah,
Even if He's showing you something that is scary
yeah.
and
It's
that
horrible.
makes you feel hopeless,
Yep.
but
I know
if He's showing you,
Then there's hope.
it will show you, He will show you, but there will be this, like you were talking about, this little separation. Your brain is going around talking about it again, but you know your brain is doing that. Just slightly. I mean, you're not like in control. Well, I know my brain. No, you're just aware barely that it's happening, but you know your brain is just going on and on and on.
Yeah.
And you can't stop it. That awareness is the secret to life. Having the awareness that you are out of control and you can't stop it, and not being angry is the secret to life. We always resort to anger or to oblivion. We don't want to see it anymore. Can't do it.
Yeah.
See? And this process, because everybody thinks they have to change themselves, when really all God wants to show you in a wordless way is that you have to let Him in to change you.
Yeah.
See?
And he doesn't need our help when we see that too, because there's a tendency like, you know, like
We're always trying to help Him, though.
Yeah.
I mean, we really want to be a nice guy to God, you know. I'll help you out, you know.
yeah, it's
Anytime you're helping God out, it's a sign.
oh yeah, because it's not our fight, you know. They take care of it. The other realm will take care of it. It's yeah.
I'd like to say something about the tears and the crying, because it's happened to me a lot here. And I think what it is, I think it's you yourself being sorry, seeing the light of truth is showing you something that you wish that you were different, and that you're sorry that.
That's true. That was my experience, but I have found people who cry, and the crying stands in the way of realization.
I'm sure.
So it actually has become a barrier to them.
Involved in the emotion.
Yeah, it's just like sex can be a barrier to tenderness, and yet now you have an experience of two people just tenderly kissing each other with no ulterior motive. It just happens, so the very same thing that was destroying you, it's now creating a new reality. It's just a symptom or a symbol of that reality. So just to add to what you said, crying is not enough, which is to say, that's probably not said right, but what is, you could have the little tears and crying.
That's said very well.
Because you just go through it, and I remember, I'll give you an example.
Because you can be melancholy and not.
No, yeah. Or the cry could be what a little baby does when they're faced with an impatient mother. They yammer and cry, and now they become hypnotically connected to any time there's craziness trying to invade them, they cry. And what it does is it keeps God's consciousness from coming in.
That gives the baby the.
Hold on.
Yeah, I've experienced a lot of times where I'm crying and I don't feel any emotion. And this morning I got up to go to the bathroom, and I'm just using the bathroom, and my tears are hitting the floor as I'm walking down the hall.
Okay.
And I don't feel anything, but it changes
No,
my
but that's a
my
miracle.
energy level afterwards.
It's a miracle level that you let that happen.
Yeah, well,
And don't analyze it.
and I don't try to.
That's,
But what I do,
Tim,
it's
that
spontaneous.
is beautiful.
It's spontaneous.
Yes.
I don't do anything.
What
but-
it is it's your soul expressing itself in those tears
Yeah.
without the brain involved, and you are okay with it.
Yeah.
And that is
Oh, yeah.
a miracle. See? Just let it unfold.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's the nicest thing I've heard all morning. Not to put anybody down. It brought tears to my eyes.
What you were saying about the relationship with the child, the baby, and the mother, the child can sense the rejection.
Right.
And rejection is the most demonous thing that we can insert in our children to damage them for the rest of their life. Rejection is one of the most hurtful and the most cruel thing we could do with our children. Did you just swallow?
Yes. Did you hear it?
I saw it.
Oh, well, I have an Adam's apple. Adam's apple. Ooh.
Well,
Let me
it was
add
just-
something to that,
Yeah.
because I know people who always never want to reject somebody. And the person they're impatient with and judging and hating secretly, they're always accepting. But the other energy produces a conflict. Sorry, I hit that mic there. The other energy produces a conflict so that you have them accepting while that wrong energy, which we suffered as a child that rejected us, because we, as children, we weren't impatient, most of us. But the impatience of the person coming in to deal with us, we could feel it. 2 o'clock in the morning, dirty diaper, whatever. They're human. And we feel that energy, and it's like an invasion of our soul. We don't understand it. So I know people who are always accepting, but always with the energy. They're trying to compensate for this energy, this anger and frustration and everything, so it produces a conflict in us. Because one minute they're being accepting, but then the part that's behind the accepting is poison. If we're still enough aware, we've sensed that. And it actually produces a whole series of, what do they do in the Star Wars thing where they put up their armor or whatever, all their shields of protection, our shields are all malfunctioning, they're going up and they're going down. Because it's so confusing. They're accepting, but that energy behind there, the only reason they're accepting is because they have this and they feel guilty and they're going to accept. And they're
Are
going to
you
be
saying because-
gracious and they're going to give.
Because of their selfishness, they can't love?
Well, we can't love.
No, I know.
We don't know
but
how to
I'm
love.
trying to get the concept of,
No.
of who's doing
They're
this.
trying to deal with their guilt.
Okay.
They're trying to deal with
They're doing it anyway.
guilt or conflict here. Because some people can experience conflict and it's not guilt. It's just like, would the guilt get out of here so I can do what I want? There's a little conflict there because they can't get rid of the guilt sometime all the way. But that doesn't mean they're sorry. They're this way, and now they've learned a way to look giving when
But, hold on, do they even know they have the conflict?
they don't.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Generally, they could. I shouldn't say like I'm an expert.
No.
They could. It could be tiny little conflict that's real, but they are diabolical because they actually kill people. They make people kill themselves.
parent?
This kind of person.
I'm kind of
no, I'm talking
confused
about a
on the
personality. No, no.
role here.
It can be a parent. It can be a brother. It can be a little kid who's learned this. Usually kids haven't gotten that sophisticated yet, but they can. A little 8-year-old girl, boy, some of these 8-year-old girls can manipulate everything.
Yeah.
So that they're being very kind to the 3-year-old, but they've got this energy. So they look like they're accepting, but that energy they're working with is rejecting. And the little 3-year-old doesn't know what to do because it looks like a loving person here, but they feel the energy. So they're in total conflict. The 3-year-old doesn't know what to do. And
Because it looks one way.
it looks one way, and they actually feel guilty
They
for
think they're
rejecting
getting
it.
ice cream, but
It's like Ray
garlic
tells a
inside.
story about the little girl who wants to reject her grandmother's gift. And
The
her gra-
reason, because I have an 8-year-old niece and my granddaughter's almost 6. My granddaughter cannot face. She will not face when she's wrong. I tell her, your shoes are on the wrong feet. I like it that way. She's worn her coat upside down, and she is very emotional. She's had a lot of trauma in her life, her dad has been very wicked to her, and she cries. So if I say, Eleanor, why did you do that? She'll just look at me, and then she'll start to cry. And then, so I have that, and I don't know, when she cries, obviously it's irritating because it's a very loud,
Her cry may be a way of dominating the situation.
it is. But I can see how I react. But then the 8-year-old who has an extremely alcoholic, wicked mother, her spirit, I see everything you're saying. Now, I just want to know, when they're coming, when they're doing those things, how do you deal with that without,
I
like,
don't know.
overpowering them?
No. Here's what you do. You see what you see, and you do what you do. And when you do what you do, you see what you do.
Because I do what you say.
You watch.
I'm like,
Sometimes you're
trying
helpless.
to be good.
Sometimes, yeah. What you've got to look at is the part of you that is mechanical, that's done it always this way.
All right.
And when you see it's mechanical, just notice that you're in that. Don't try to change it. Just notice it's, so now your antenna's up. You're sniffing around to see if there's some little thing you need to see. Because the fact is, we are all, even the guys in the back row who are asleep, we are all hypnotized.
Because you just want it to stop. I just want her to stop crying. And I realize now, it's like, okay, I need to address why is she crying, not just stop, here's a cracker, here's a sucker, don't cry, it's okay.
No.
So,
Yeah. But you don't know what the right thing to do, because here's the funny thing. You can give her a cracker, and it's with the right energy, and she changes. Or
how
not.
old is she? She's almost 6.
She says she doesn't see many people. You are seeing the human condition played out in just a handful of people.
No, it's amazing.
And this is true anywhere. So that the only way you could get away without seeing this is just to be around 1,000 sheep out in the middle of nowhere. And even then you might
No,
see
I've got it all in just my little circle of my family.
It seems to me if you can flip the game on this
But-
little child,
Give her a bite.
if you could flip the game on this little child and say, wow, you're wearing your shoes in a very creative way, instead of,
You can't
well,
I mean, you might end up doing that, but you can't plan it.
no.
Because what it is, it has to do with the way it's done, the energy it comes from, the inspiration of it. And even if it's wrong, if you're noticing how it's all your pattern, you notice something as you're doing it, that changes the energy.
Sure.
You see how that works?
It doesn't
So that
matter.
you're doing exactly the same thing, but because you're conscious of it and you notice something about it, but it's not really intellectual, you just like crying without crying, just seeing the tears, that consciousness changes the energy of the moment, and different things will happen. And she may change, or she may be worse, because she needs to be worse to see the next thing she needs. You don't know.
Well, I feel sorry for her because she was very hurt by her dad.
No, but that's beyond. That's
I
gone.
know, but I don't want to feel sorry for her because you know
No,
what?
it's the sorry.
I don't want to create that victim crap.
No, because
that-
you're actually, by feeling sorry, you're making the craziness that was put in her by a reaction to her father grow,
Validating it.
in a sense. And so it's real complicated. You can't figure it out.
The way I see this is that you have to look at it not knowing what you're going to say and, having a desire. Naturally you want to have the desire to want to do what's right, but you have to be helpless there and see your helplessness. Isn't that part of it?
Right, but you do it, you don't do it in a, well, I need to be helpless sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
See,
exactly.
what happens is you find yourself there all of a sudden helpless. That pain is the perfect pain, because the part of you that's in pain when you see your helplessness in the moment is the ego nature. And as that begins to be affected by that pain, you feel its pain. After a while, you don't feel its pain. And what happens is there's a whole other chemistry, I'm not going to get into it, but it's going on. You don't need to even know that, because it'll show you'll have experiences and you'll see things, oh, that must be part of it. But then you're not concerned about this. It's the underworld you're not seeing, but that's all right.
The amazing thing that's happening right now is that the particular group that I have are my 2 daughters. My one daughter has 2 daughters. My other daughter has a daughter and a son. So as I'm talking to you guys, I see that they are all, that circle of my people, they're all an extension of everything I've been and am.
Yeah.
So I judge them, and they feel that judgment. And as everybody's been talking today, I can see as I judge them, I keep that alive in myself so I can never get well.
And alive in
Or as I let that go, it frees all of us at the
But you
same
can't
time.
let go of your judgment. Someone told me that the other day. I saw my parents couldn't help themselves, and I let go of the. I didn't judge them anymore. So I essentially you don't let go of judgment. All you do is see your judgment and suffer the pain. Something in you suffers the pain of seeing that, and suffers the pain of seeing that, and then one day you notice there's no judgment. And all it is in that pain, that part of you that lives off that energy of judgment is losing its energy because of the consciousness in that. And as a result, now you're less and less judgmental, but you're always looking for the judgment. Always looking to see if it's there, but not looking intellectually. You're just like a baby in the crib. He's got his eyes open, looking at the next thing that comes in. We lose that. You want to be, Jesus said, you must become as a little child. You must be born again. He wasn't doing some, fancy language thing. He was talking, and the Pharisee said, what are you talking about? I can't be born again, go through my mother's womb. What do you mean? He put that out there on the table, and the early Christians reproduced that. Even though they didn't really give a perfect explanation of it, they reproduced it. They certainly weren't talking about pouring water on your head. They were talking about a very real thing. You must be born again. You must go through that place as a helpless child where you turn to the world for power. You must be drawn through that. You can't find it. It will find you if you're willing. And
that goes both ways.
Say that again?
That goes both ways. When you're willing to be a participant in the evil, it finds you and knows which way to lead you also.
But here's the irony. I'm going to tell you evil's little weak spot. Evil cannot go into reality. He can only live in unreality because he's under the illusion that he's going to win. Just like your ego thinks it's going to win. So even though he can manipulate your life, he's got an illusion there. Cool. And if you're standing in reality all the time, he has trouble working. He says, I can only work around here when they're not aware. I can only work in their dreams when they're asleep. And I'm just making it up, but you see what I'm saying?
It's true.
It's true. He cannot stand in that light. It's the light of, it's funny, we use the word light. The energy that powers the whole universe, I believe, comes from the creator of the universe. And that energy has to constantly flow for everything, for every atom to have its electrons going around there for 100,000 years. Doesn't it use up its energy? No. Somehow it always has the energy for the electrons to rotate around the nucleus. Where is that coming from? It should use it up and get a smaller nucleus, and it doesn't. It has to be in the sunlight to get that. No, it doesn't. It's in the middle of the earth. Where is that energy coming from?
We're just taking a bat and batting it away from our own circle in our silliness and our stupidness.
But here's this energy's flowing through everything. But that's the physical energy. Now there's another part of the Father is his energy comes in. And that energy, we call it light, but it's not light, it's an energy that flows into us, and it is an energy with, I hate to use the word knowledge, but with an energy with meaning. It's not just energy, it's energy with meaning.
How about intelligence?
In a sense, we call intelligence, you don't want to put God under, God is not the master computer, but I think it's the best we can do. Because we're made in his image.
What he puts in us is a pattern.
Yes.
We cannot put into words, but it kind of repairs. It's like the
What
repair.
happens as you let that in,
Yeah.
there's a warmness in your heart.
Yeah.
There's a part of you that's suffering because it's being chastised in an unknown way, not in a word way. But there's a part of you that feels a warmness because this is what you've always yearned and have rejected it by doing all
Very,
these things.
very momentarily, it's energy. It's like an energy that I experience, and it's like a washing of all the bad. And I remember before I heard Roy, long before I would meditate, when I'd get so run down, I would close my eyes for like a half an hour and I'd see light patterns. And when I got up, I was renewed in my energy and I could function.
So all you need to do is
Yeah.
go along this path, and you'll slip and fall, so what?
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, I've got a lot
After a while, what
Yeah.
happens is I slip and fall, but I never bruise.
Yeah. Well, I've gotten
just
out
get
of-
up and go on.
I've gotten
So-
out of a lot of crap. Excuse
Okay, so I'm just using it as an example because
Yeah.
you're a guy who works. So
Yeah.
what happens is after a while you slip and fall, but there's no bruise because you see it right away.
Yeah.
And the slipping and falling is just part of the growing.
Yeah.
Because if you slip and fall and resent God because he failed you, that shows you there's a part of you that's holding God accountable. And you just need to see that. And he's showing you that in the slip
Yeah.
and fall. When
Yeah.
he withdraws his energy, when he takes away all his protection for a moment or two or three, if you resort to the old way, you haven't learned. If you don't, and you hang there helpless, he can work with that.
I like the old saying when somebody asks you how you're doing. The guy used to say this, better than I deserve. It's true.
That's
Yeah,
true.
It's very true.
It's not about deserving.
No.
You want to know an interesting story?
Microphone.
I've told this, I think, before, but just call me Roy. So I was walking down the street last year, it was in January, and I had these shoes on, and I went like this on the ground, and there was bricks, and it wasn't slippery. I think 3 steps later, I slid, I fell, and I broke my kneecap. And I didn't resent God. What I saw was God said, something's coming, because I knew that the ground was slippery. He told me the ground was slippery, but when I went like that, it wasn't slippery in that moment, so I fell. Well, I was laid up, and I had to rely on other people, and I had to give up a part of myself, because I'm always the one giving, I'm always the one doing. And it was a really good experience, my slipping, just because you said that, it was literal for me. So it was just an interesting experience how...
This is good. In the fall, it sets you up for a whole other understanding.
Yeah.
So because you were willing to be conscious, oh, this could be slippery, that's a good sign. The fact that you fell doesn't mean, oh, well, you weren't aware enough. I've fallen several times recently, had nothing to do with awareness.
I never said, why did God let me? I said,
No.
oh, God warned me this was coming. Like, brace yourself, girl, because this is going to hurt.
And you see later, all this was meant to be because I needed to see this.
Yeah. I
And
had to rely and give
as
up.
this happens and you see it in your life over and over again, after a while, you're just there, ready? You don't, look out, you just see what you see, and when it happens to you, you wonder why, but you don't, it's not like, why? It's, oh, I wonder why. It's a wonder, not a accusation. We use our wondering, false wondering is an accusation. Look at my burden to God. But look at my burden. He says, but I'll take it. No, but look at it. No, but I'll take your burden. No, but look at it. We hold him responsible for our burden. And this is only natural. It's our nature. We need to be led through this and see this and not know that it's really not our fault. This is just what we grew into. And all of a sudden, the more you realize that, the less the burden is.
Can I share something that I've recently been sharing with other people that I found on YouTube? And it has to do with the Ark of the Covenant. May I?
Oh, can you? Oh,
Yeah, I'm asking permission because it's changing the subject.
yeah, it is. I know what you're talking about because you pointed it out to me. I just assume, unless there's some real connection to what we're talking about, I'd rather not change the subject. I like what we're talking about. Did you want to say something? No, okay. Unless we're out of energy here. Yes, sir. Give him the mic.
I had a couple of things. One was I had an accident.
Could you speak up a little bit?
I had an accident like when I was in college, quite a few years ago. But what I've been saying in terms of like sitting and meditating, it's like, I've been saying, like, God's going to have to do all the work now. I'm just going to sit here. And so this accident came back to me, you know. But it's like you're saying right now, very, very strong will. But I just like, I think God moves like, it's got nothing to do with the person sitting still.
It's got nothing to do with what?
Sitting there and meditating, I mean, you sit there, but you feel the only entity is going to be God. That's got nothing to do with you, you know?
I'm not sure what you're saying.
Yeah.
Could you pass the mic? Maybe he can explain it better. Could you come a little closer?
Of myself, I can do nothing. I think that's what he's saying.
Hold it a second.
For the mic.
What I think he's saying is there's nothing I can do. He said God has to do all the work.
Oh, well,
That's what
true.
I caught when
Yeah,
he said
that's true.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I just didn't quite understand. Anything else? I don't know how long we've gone here.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, that's good. Anybody?
I don't know if I can add anything to this conversation at this point. However, my past week has been an example of this discussion today. And realizing the resentments in myself and judging people, and then going for a period where I'm questioning them, looking at people, and I said, well, I don't see this anymore, and I don't see that. It was a blessing because I was judging people as to what they were. And so, as best I can say it, I'm thankful for having these things happen to me. I've had many, many things happen to me since I fell and broke several bones.
Mm-hmm.
And having to give up being so independent, so fiercely independent, thinking that I was in charge of everything. And even when I went into rehab, I approached the rehab in the same manner and spirit, and it led to worse until I collapsed. And in that collapse was a knowing that I could no longer do what I have been doing.
So you've been pushing your whole life? Is that what
Yes,
you're saying?
pushing.
And without realizing, in your disciplined way, without realizing that you needed to judge everybody's failure to make you feel right.
Yes.
See? And as foolish as that sounds, that's par for the course.
Wow.
And the realization that that's what's going on, and along with that realization comes this knowing that's not me.
Mm-hmm.
That's not who I want to be. It just sort of, it's not in words, it just comes up. And that means you're ready for more insight, more revelation, and He will show you more. So that you may die in the state you're in physically, but spiritually, you've begun another journey. And you're on the way, if that's the case. Because I don't know when you're on the way, I just know people are moving in a direction. To say you're on the way is like, okay, now you're ready to go all the way. Who's to say? I've seen people go part way and then stop and say,
I listened to you when you said that earlier, and so the thing came to my mind, well, I wonder if that's me.
You don't know.
This is what,
if you settle on the answer, then you've already made a mistake. Oh, that's me. Oh, that's not me.
I don't have any answers to the questions I'm asking.
God wants you to go without the answers.
Okay.
He wants you to let Him lead you in this magical way. And all it is you're willing to let whatever it is, His presence is, His energy, there's something in you that has held back the crazy energy of the world, and now you're willing to let it in. And when you let that in, it begins to change the chemistry so that all the things that would hurt you before are now going to work towards your salvation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a magical thing.
Okay.
I know I reached a point in meditation where I didn't want to go any further. I didn't. I just, things are going pretty good right now. I just kind of would like to just stop right here and keep it here. I didn't want to, because it just was it seemed to be it was too difficult, and I just didn't want to face a lot of that stuff. Well, several years later, somebody at the foundation said, "Yeah, but that's not you." But I had accepted it as being me.
And it's not
So,
you.
No.
See? And it's not so much you don't know who you are, you just know that's not you. See? And it's not that you can do all the wrong things too. Do you have a question in the back?
Yeah. For you, see if you can answer it.
Put your mic, yeah.
When Socrates died, drank the poison, what do you think was going on in his mind?
What does that have to do with the price of
The
apples?
price of apples. I don't know what's going on inside. I want to know what's going on in your mind.
Yeah.
I don't care about Socrates. We won't go back 2,500 years. Let's stick it right in the room here. But you won't tell me what's going on in your mind.
That is called a red herring, if you know what that is.
And I'm not a fisherman.
But he's a public speaker.
Okay, are we done? Anything else? Anybody else wants last? Yes.
I just want to say one thing. What's your name?
Roger.
Roger. I appreciate when you say those things about me crying, because I know what you're talking about, because I have experienced the sweetness of my cries. But just so you know, what he sees in me is I've also used that as a way to deflect from seeing myself. Because my husband used to catch me, and I would cry.
Married to me.
That's because
Yeah.
my wife has the same problem and I
But
didn't
I'm just saying
understand. And then
that-
now I
that-
really see it, so I
but
see how it works.
That might be why he can't know what you're talking about, because he's also seen the opposite side of me come out. So I just wanted you to know that I do appreciate it, because I do know that there is the good crying and
Yeah, there is a good
the bad
guy. Tim told us that. It's beautiful. I can't believe what we covered here today, so.
Well, small groups sometimes are nice.
Yeah.
Small groups
Well,
sometimes.
it's actually even if you have a big group, you may only have a dozen people in the big group talking, but everybody could benefit from it. But there is, I tell this to some of my friends, and they agree with me, but they don't see it. There's a value to taking the risk to saying something. If you say something stupid and you're called on it, that's good. If you say something that isn't stupid, that is from your heart and you can't express it, but you just try the best you can, that's good. It's got to be in a place where people are somewhat, they're on the journey you're on. If you go to the wrong place and you speak up, you're going to get put down, and you're all fighting them, or you're doubting yourself or whatever. But I would hope that here we have an environment where it's not, you have to say this, 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 this. If someone says something and I don't understand what they're saying, I'll say, I don't get you, what do you mean? And they may be able to say it clearer the next time, or in the process of saying it, it becomes clear that what they're saying is deceptive. Well, that's just the evolution of the group. See, that's the beauty of it. And if we don't want to I'm sure people in here judge each other and all that, but that's okay. They're not perfect. But hopefully you...
How dare you?
But there's a magic to this, and I like the magic to go out so other people can hear it around the world, but I think there's a magic to being here. And I have so many people I know who say, oh, I love what Roy does on Sunday morning. I listen every time. They go once a year. And I'm saying, hey, you need to go more often and take a few risks, because this could be your Waterloo. It could be your breakthrough. And it maybe all you get out of that is, I hate everybody because they judged me. And now you get to see your judgment. Isn't that marvelous? See? Because there's nothing, your judgment may be correct in that you're judging them accurately, but it's not your place to judge. And so even if you have a correct judgment, that judgment, you've got to see the chemistry of it and realize, ooh, that's not good. That's not me.
And I think you also have to see that you judge everybody. You
can't
don't
help it.
realize it, but you do. And sometimes when you do see that realization, it wakes you up, and you have that little thing gee, I wish I had done that, I'm sorry, or whatever. And if you can do that.
What happens to me is, it's so funny, I have to tell you this experience. This is years ago. My wife and I were married 2 or 3 years, and she had an injury to her knee. And so that after the doctor did something, I forget, but
no, I know what it was.
What was it?
Nope.
What?
I had a mole removed from my back. Is that?
Was that? No, this is when we were taking a walk and I offered to hold your purse.
Oh, that's a different story. I thought you were going to talk about the blood.
No, that's a different one. Now they're interested in the blood. This has no blood in it, sorry. So we're going into town in the Grants Pass, passing over the bridge, and I see old man walking with his old wife, and he's carrying her purse. And I secretly judge him. But somehow I remembered the judgment, because I remember looking at that, judging him. But I didn't know I was judging. Somehow the memory stuck in my head. And then about an hour or two later, we go and she has an adjustment or something to her back. I guess it was a chiropractor. And so he said, walk around the block once or twice and don't carry your heavy purse because, that'll unbalance everything. So I said, I'll carry your purse. So I'm carrying the purse, walking down the street carrying the purse, and all of a sudden it flashes on me that judgment that 2 hours before I had done to that couple. And I says, this is funny. And now there's something in me wants to put the purse down because somebody's going to judge me. But then I realized how foolish it was, because what if that guy was carrying her purse because she just had a back adjustment? Who knows? So it was a very good, it's not that I stopped judging after that, but it was just so ironic because it was like God showed me how judgmental I am. So now I see judgments in my mind all the time. I just don't go for the bait.
Either one would have been.
I just see the judgment passing. Oh, he's a, and I just see it, and then it's gone. And I don't need that. And if I do get sucked into it a little, I see it right away. So.
Yeah, that's what I saw about me. I wasn't generating the judgments. I was either jumping with it or not.
Yeah, you take the bait.
It's like soothing excuses. Same thing. Like, it's not
the same
me
thing.
making the excuse, but am I going to jump with it or
your
not?
brain will give you the excuse, and do you hop on board?
Right.
And usually what happens is in the beginning, you notice you hopped on board 20 hours ago, and then 3 hours ago, but when you realize you're hopping on board in the moment, everything changes. And you may have a few more of those, but what happens is if you're conscious in the moment of this process unfolding and how compulsive it is, it begins to change the whole chemistry. And you didn't change it, it's just you're willing to go there. And if you notice that you're not willing to go there and you always realize things later, that's got to be a sign. And if you're really meant to wake up, you'll say, oh, geez, that's me. That's me, I wonder why. But the wonder is a real wonder, not a thing in your head, language thing. Okay. We're done.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
One more?
What?
Hold on.
Thank you. Thank you. I was just going to say, I was sitting here just a little bit ago, and this dark feeling come over me, and I thought, I'm seeing his aura, and I realized it was coming from inside of me, and it's just. There was something about that. It's like, it's terrible. It's something.
Maybe it's a judgment.
I wasn't in a judgment process, but it would just come up, and I thought, man, there's something wrong with this. And then all of a sudden, it was like it went away, and I was like, oh, okay, there's something to me that is wrong. That
I often will go into a room, and it'll be a crowded room with people, and I'm just standing there, and there's somebody across the room that's looking at me with hate in their eyes, and I don't even know them.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't even know them. And it used to scare me. But it doesn't scare me anymore. I just know that something is looking through them. What happened to me the first time I remember it happening was I was at a seminar years ago, and I was working at Tall Timber Ranch because I was a foreman. And so they'd have these big seminars for a week, and I would come in for 15 minutes when I could, but I was busy doing the meals and making sure everything worked. So one day I came in, and it was in the living room of the main house, and there were all kinds of people there, 60 or 70 people. So there were people standing up. Either they had gotten to go up to go to the bathroom and they came back, because these sessions were 3 hours long. And there were people standing in the hallway with me, and I'm standing there and just watching things as somebody's talking or something. And there's a guy standing next to me my height. I'm pretty tall, and he's my height. And I look over, I just turn to look at him, and he turns to look at me, and I am looking in the face of hell. His eyes, somehow his eyes looked demonic somehow when I'm looking. And I'm looking at it, and then I look back, and you just feel this. And I knew that guy wasn't home for a minute, because he was a nice guy. Mm-hmm. He wasn't home, and he was looking through his eyes at me so I would judge him to protect myself. And I didn't go for it. I saw the crazy evil, what it represented. It could have scared the bejeebies out of me, and I would put up the shield of judgment to protect myself, and I just didn't do it. And I knew it wasn't his fault. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I worked at a rental property, and I became friends with some of the kids, talking with them and everything like that. And this one little kid kind of adopted me, and he would tell me about all his problems with his parents and all that. And I became friends with him, and he looked up to me, and then one day I ran into this other person working there that I recognized, and I was talking with him. And then I turned around and I said something to the little kid, and he didn't say anything to me. And he looked at me and he said, do you like kids? Like that. And I could feel something looking at him through me. It was that thing inside me.
Oh, looking at through you?
Yes.
Okay.
I could feel it looking through me at this kid, and he could see it, and it affected him. And he would actually, the next day I went there, he had wrecked some of the landscaping that I had done.
To get even with you?
Yeah. And it was like...
and he couldn't help himself.
No, but it was like there was
somehow
something
that
in me.
craziness that was in you when you were unconscious,
Yeah.
but you were conscious enough to
see
remember all
it.
this.
Yeah, I saw, because if it hadn't been for the effect on the kid, I probably wouldn't have been aware of it.
You wouldn't even known it
happening.
happened.
But it was just for a brief moment, and I really didn't say anything to him.
So this consciousness
Yeah.
that we need to have is not something you practice. It's not something, I gotta be conscious. That's a mistake, because you'll never work.
Yeah.
What it is you let his and when his consciousness comes in, the first thing it shows you is where you're wrong.
Do you have to apologize, or do
You don't have to. You may. You may not. Because the apology can be the same thing as the tears. It can actually be a way of, because here's the person who's guilty and hasn't seen it deep in their heart, apologizing because they feel a little guilty, and now the apology is coming from somebody who isn't really contrite, and the kid feels it. And now that produces, like one of your granddaughters may be like that. And there's no way to undo that. It can be undone. There's no way for you to undo it. So all you need to do is see the little tricks and little things that have, because you have to realize every one of you is the end of a very long heritage. Father, mother, 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 father, mother, all the way back to wherever your ancestors came from. And they've been passing this down to varying degrees. Both my parents ran away from home when they were in their teens because they couldn't stand the crazy cultures that they were brought, and the hypocrisy and everything. But it was still in them. And so as much as they ran away and as much as they tried to keep secret, it grew up in them. And as a child, young man, I began to recognize, ooh, that's like his dad, only he's trying to compensate. He's trying to be nice when he's not. His dad didn't try to be nice, he was just mad. My dad was mad, but he's trying not to be mad, but it comes through anyway. So even though they were better than their parents in a way, it's still the same essence. We're all the ends of these, or maybe not even the end because you got ancestors, some of you, but offspring. But this is the process. Don't be mad about it. You are who you are.
Jesus suffered all the lineage of the world. Jesus suffered for the sins of the world.
Right.
He took it on.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yes.
And you're
redeemed
saying
that.
because we're at this point in our life of all the lineage of the people behind us, is it not what you're saying that we have to have, I'm not going to be able to select my words very well, so forgive me, but we need to have the attitude to have the moment in forgiveness, that consciousness for all of the rest of all that we have inside us.
Right.
It's like an opportunity.
What it is Jesus, because we came after Jesus, he has this legacy, and what he does is he's the agent of the Father, and he comes in, and he does all these things. I say God's presence, Jesus is the facilitator of that in you. And it's his Spirit allows this thing where our nature is changed.
But because of our willingness, isn't it kind of like the buck stops here?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Yes, I know what she's saying.
What?
Because we're
yeah,
willing to
yeah.
do it, it doesn't go any further.
Right, well, it'll go around you,
Yeah.
but it won't go through you. Because you're saying, this is not me. And if it's real, he will begin to change you, and now your nature will be actually an agent of this redeemed nature. And everywhere you go, you will affect people. You won't necessarily save people, but you will affect them, because you don't reconfirm this whole craziness where you're nice, but you hate them anyway.
But you could be a genuine person.
Yes.
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah, and that genuineness is even in this room, and that's marvelous magic. And it will change, it will help change. My job is not to change the world. My job is just to do what the next thing I'm supposed to do, and I don't know what that is. If it's an agent in that, that's wonderful, but I know that I can't have any ambitions at all. So the fact that I was able to talk and not sneeze and sniffle was a good thing. Who knew?
Can I just ask a question? As you're talking and you just said something about Jesus intertwining, there's a knot in my stomach. So as that's happening to me, is it just, here's the crying, I'm not sure where it's coming from. Is it just that I have to see? Like there's something happening in my stomach right now. So is it just an awareness?
That's all it is. See? And it could become something bigger or not. It could only be a little gas. Really. It could be a little gas that produces the trauma, before of things you've had. It's just a little gas.
Just say that one more time, the second part that you're saying.
It could be a little gas that's producing the same conditions that before you had when it was a big deal that was in you. It's producing those conditions in order to get you to react. And if you just see that clearly, all you see is you feel the pain, you see the thing, you're wondering what's next. But if you do it without any resistance at all, just to wait and see, all of a sudden you pass gas. But I, for instance, find I will get sick with the flu or cold, and my symptoms are traumatic. They reproduce symptoms I had as a child. So I'm going through the symptoms. I have the cold, but I'm watching for the emotion. I'm not really watching. I'm just watching, and if the emotion's there, it'll show itself.
So you don't have
And the
to
helplessness.
know what it is.
No, you don't have to know anything. All you have to do is be willing to see.
Recognize
No,
what's
you don't.
happening.
That's a lie. That's your brain telling you don't have to recognize anything. If you need to know something, you will know it in a way the brain does not know how to know. And you will be able to express it in words, but it won't be your brain. You will actually find that your brain will be used, just as it's been used by wrong, it will now be used by the energy of right. And he will use your brain and your mouth to speak things and say just the right words for somebody that you have no idea you're doing it. And even if you make a fool of yourself, you're willing to. And there's a magic in that. So and you have to realize if it happened this way once, it doesn't mean it's going to happen this way again. I'll tell you one other thing and then we'll quit. Most of the times I had these exorcisms over a period of several years, I don't have memories of it. It's not that I was out. I was very conscious. I could tell you right after it happened, well, this is what I did, and this, because I was very conscious. But there was nothing to hold on to. I didn't hold on to, well, I said this, and I was this, and he did that. And it's not important to me. Only remember the first and the last. The first was not an exorcism. It was a realization. I hate. Deep, 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 deep. I didn't even know I was talking. I was going, and Roy says, what are you saying? Sounds like I'm belching. But it came out, I hate. This demonic voice. It wasn't evil telling me. Evil wouldn't admit that. That was somewhere in my soul. And the last time it happened had nothing to do with possession at all. And that's a story for another day, but it was the last time it happened. So in between, there's hardly anything I remember, but there was one episode, one thing, Roy's mentioned it a couple of times because he remembers it, where I had this long exorcism at the ranch, and this demon that was in me had an identity, and it was talking and saying things and suffering. Roy was talking to it and suffering in there, and people in the audience at the seminar were having sympathy with the pain that the evil is going through, as though I was going through it. I wasn't going through it at all. So I went through this whole thing. It was like 45 minutes or something. I came in for 15 minutes just to see what was going on. And then all of a sudden this happened. Afterwards, I'm sitting in a chair. You know, it's a pretty big experience, wondering what this all means. And my legs hurt. They feel stiff. My knees feel stiff. And I'm wondering, why do my knees feel stiff? And I flex my legs a little, and all of a sudden the memory comes to me. When I was a little boy, 2 years old, year and a half old, they noticed I was overweight because my mother fed me too much because I was born a little light, so she decided to feed me a lot, and so I was a little overweight. And they noticed my legs were sort of bowed, and they were worried, oh, he's going to have bow legs. So the doctor says, what you have to do is put these steel braces on your son every night when he goes to bed.
So the doctor was your grandfather?
Well, that, and there were others too. But the point is, they put those braces on me, and they did it for I don't know how many days or weeks before they decided we can't do this anymore. This poor kid can't sleep at night. He's all crying all night because he's in braces. So they stopped, and my legs grew normal and everything. So when I'm 8 years old, they're cleaning out the attic, and there are the braces, and so I start asking them questions because I had no memory of that. And I asked my dad, and he didn't want to talk about it. And I asked my mom, and then I asked her later, what do you mean they were my braces? And so finally I got a little bit of a story. When I'm sitting in there in that seminar after that exorcism, just everything's over, I'm just sitting in the chair, and I'm feeling the stiffness in my legs, that thought came to my head, oh, I had braces. They would strap me into them every night when I was a year and a half old, and I would have to sleep all night under this torture. I wonder if the anger I had then led to my possession.
Wow.
It just came to me like that. I didn't know that was the case. I had no memories of it. I remember seeing the braces in my attic when I was 8, and that shows you how trauma is in your body. And before that, I could sit on my knees, but I wasn't that flexible, and now I'm very flexible for 71 years old. But my only point is your body remembers this stuff. So there are trauma triggers in your body. It may come, you may feel something. All God is letting you feel that for is to unlock the trauma, to see if your resistance to the trauma is anger, and you can see the anger. That's all it's meant to do. And if you see the anger and you're watching it, even if the trauma is just because you had some gas or because you have the flu, and it's the same symptom, the symptom triggers the trauma, which triggers the defense for you to see, that's not me. I don't want to defend myself with anger. I don't want to defend myself with judgment.
When you said that Jesus is interweaving, then there was a willingness inside myself to accept that.
And there's something doesn't like that. Something doesn't like the simplicity of you.
Well, it doesn't like it because my whole life I've taken on the responsibility of every single person. And I don't want to get lost in this and had to fix it.
That gives your whole ego nature a purpose.
I know, but I'm
It justifies it.
Hold on, I don't want to get lost in this. I really want to hear what you're saying, so hold on. Okay.
The way to hear what I'm saying is to listen. Not to shut me up.
Well, because I can feel I'm getting lost, I just want
See,
to.
there's something in you that's trying to shut
Not
me up.
here, okay.
And my wife will tell you I won't shut up. Because he's in me, and he wants to come in you, and you want to invite him in. And that part of you that's made a home in you is threatened. And let him raise his voice to heaven, because that's what's going to happen. It's going to cry to heaven, and you're going to be free. And that's all it is. See, because you're not meant to be in his camp. Just let it unfold, because this is all it is. It's Jesus unlocked. He came, was sent by his Father because of the pureness of his soul. He came into our lineage, and he now can change our lineage. He can change around the mistake of Adam, our father. And that makes a certain element in the world very uncomfortable. I don't want to use my typical Army language. Forgive me, Bernie. You don't want me to use Army language, huh?
Just seeing that my whole existence has been a lie.
It's true.
And I'm not afraid, and I knew it, but maybe right now I'm just accepting it through Jesus. I don't. There's a little bit of power coming from your hand. Like, feel peace.
You don't have to fix everybody and fix everything.
No.
It's not your job.
Okay.
It's just peace is
Just be quiet.
coming.
Just be quiet. Just quieten down. Just let it happen. While she's going through whatever she's going through, and anything else anybody else wants to talk about, let her be in her own privacy. Not, I guess we'll adjourn for the day. And
Her trigger was when you were talking about Jesus.
Yeah.
And that was very powerful to some kind of a thing, reaction in her.
Right, right. It could be that the misuse of his name over the years, it triggers people, but it could also be that the energy, the knowledge and energy with which that was said penetrated. And it resonated with something in her beyond the brain, because they're simply words. But it was the energy with which they were said. Why I brought that up, where it came from in me, I don't know.
And the representation of those words is Jesus has the power.
Right, but beyond that, there could be power coming through me in the form of those words, but through me. And that touched something in her. And it's not my power.
No, of course not.
And I don't even know that it does it. I just notice that sometimes I do things and say things that trigger things in people, good and bad. And
I've had
I
those
used to be afraid of that because I didn't want to make people mad at me, and I didn't want to make people suffer. But now I know that it's not my choice. I don't have to decide. I don't know what's going to happen. So, amen.